Ever get this feeling like things aren't what they seem? Like you're looking at, say, a bank, all shiny and solid, but underneath, cracks are starting to show.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Well, that's kind of the story we're diving into today with this whole Woori Financial Group thing.
Oh, Woori, yeah, they're a big deal in South Korea, right? Like major financial player.
Exactly. Big player. But they've tripped up big time, and it all comes down to, well, bad governance.
And what's so interesting about this isn't just like, oops, we messed up a loan or two.
Right.
This is like their whole system, how they run things, it's messed up, and that can like domino effect outwards.
So it's not just Woori taking the hit.
Not even close. We're talking the whole financial system, even eventually, like you and me, it can touch us all.
Okay, so we're getting serious here.
Yeah.
And I know the Financial Supervisory Service, the FSS, they uncovered some, well, illegal stuff, loan scandals, billions of won.
Yeah, billions. That's not pocket change. No, this has got to have some serious repercussions.
So beyond a slap on the wrist, for sure.
Oh, way beyond. The FSS, when they dug in, it was like a whole web of shady dealings. Makes you think back to like 2008, the financial crisis.
Right, yeah, everyone remembers that.
Back then, it was lack of oversight, risky moves, boom, world economy on its knees. Woori's not that widespread. BUT, it shows us, without good governance, history can totally repeat itself.
Not a comforting thought. So today we're going deeper than the headlines, right?
Yeah.
Like what happened at Woori, but also why should we care? Even if, the biggest financial worry someone has is balancing their checkbook.
You got it. This deep dive, think of it like equipping yourself, right? To spot those warning signs, not just in finance, but any company, any organization.
Okay, so brass tacks. FSS found illegal loans, billions of won. How does that even happen? Like nobody noticed.
That's where it gets juicy. Remember Woori, they bought that subsidiary a while back.
Right.
Well, turns out they kind of skipped a step, a big step. They went around their own risk management committee. No review, nothing.
Wait, seriously? They just bypassed the people supposed to be checking for risk.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it kind of points to like a culture there, right? Speed, profit, those are king, and being careful, well, that took a back seat. And to make it even weirder, the board meeting, the main one, and the risk management committee meeting, they happened like 20 minutes apart.
20 minutes? That's barely time to get coffee, let alone like actually assess a major purchase.
Exactly. So how much oversight could there really be in 20 minutes? It makes you wonder, did the board even have a chance to like push back, question things?
Red flag number 1.
Yeah.
Skipping the risk check. Red flag number 2. Meetings happening so fast, it's suspicious. This isn't a bank, it's a runaway train.
And the conductor on this train, Chairman Jong-ryong himself called it imperial management. He said that straight up during a National Assembly audit.
Imperial management.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound too democratic.
Not at all. It's like top down, my way or the highway, and risk, well, who cares about that, right? And get this, he even admitted there were like internal factions, like fighting for control. Drama much.
So unchecked power at the top, infighting, and a disregard for risk. Yeah, we're deep into corporate thriller territory now. But was there any warning before this blew up? Someone, somewhere, had to have seen this coming.
Ironically, it's their own 2023 governance report. The one supposed to show how great they are.
Oh, the PR spin.
Well, they accidentally admitted a bunch of weaknesses, like weak internal controls, but then they're super vague on how to fix it.
Our roof leaks, but we'll get around to it someday.
Exactly. And their board, supposed to be independent, that got called out too.
Right, the board's supposed to keep things in check.
Well, with Lim admitting to those factions, it makes you wonder, how independent were they? Were they challenging him or just rubber stamping everything?
So maybe a board more worried about keeping their jobs than, doing what's right for the company. That's a problem. But what about regular employees? Did no one try to blow the whistle?
I mean, with loans, this big illegal stuff happening, you got to think someone knew, someone was talking.
Right.
Makes you wonder, did they feel safe speaking up? Was it like, keep your mouth shut or else?
Because if no one speaks up,
yeah,
well, that's how bad stuff festers.
Sure.
But hold on, we're in the digital age. Even finance is all techie now. Did technology play a role in this mess?
You hit it. Their report, it highlights how weak their IT governance is.
Meaning?
Cybersecurity, system crashes, even just mismanaging data. That can be as bad as financial crimes. Think about it. One weak link in their tech and the whole thing could crumble.
So weak controls, a maybe not so independent board, a culture of silence and tech vulnerabilities. Woori's got problems.
And that's why this deep dive matters. Seeing how all these things connect, how they created this like perfect storm at Woori that helps us spot those patterns elsewhere, maybe even prevent it happening again.
So stick with us as we untangle this. Up next, we'll see what Woori's doing about all this and what lessons we can learn from their mess.
Last we left off, Woori was looking, well, kind of vulnerable on pretty much every front. So are they doomed, or can they actually pull themselves out of this?
Their new CEO, Jin-wan, he's got a tough job ahead, that's for sure. Everyone's watching him, the regulators, the public, investors, everyone.
And the FSS, the Financial Supervisory Service, what are they saying? Are they just going to, like, lightly reprimand Woori and move on?
Oh, no. They're taking this very seriously. They're doing a full review of Woori's board, but it's not just checking off boxes, They're going deep, trying to figure out, can this board actually do its job? Can they really provide oversight, which is like the whole point of good governance?
So it's not just having a board, it's got to be a board that actually does something.
Yeah.
What are some of the concrete actions being taken to address, like, the actual mess? Well, internally, Woori's trying to beef up their oversight. But it's got to be more than just writing new policies, right? It's got to be a culture change where people are accountable and there are, like, actual consequences if you mess up.
Sounds like a big change from that imperial management style we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
What about the board itself? Are they going to, like, shake things up? Bring in some new blood?
There's a lot of pressure to do exactly that. Revamp the board, get some new people in there, people with different backgrounds, different ways of thinking, and most importantly, people who aren't afraid to, challenge the CEO, speak their mind.
So no more yes men, more like, critical thinkers who will actually hold leadership accountable.
Yeah.
But what about the tech side? Those IT issues, those vulnerabilities, are they doing anything about that?
Yeah, they're making IT governance a priority now, investing in cybersecurity, because a data breach these days, that could be disastrous. They're also updating their systems, figuring out better ways to manage all that data, because in this day and age, data is king, right?
So rebuilding the fortress, but also making sure the digital walls are strong. These sound like good steps, but can Woori really rebuild that trust? The trust they've lost.
It's going to take time, that's for sure. They're saying the right things, but actions speak louder than words. They've got to be transparent, accountable, ethical, and not just for a few months. It's got to be a permanent change, like baked into their culture.
So it's one thing to say you've changed, it's another to actually prove it. But this isn't just a Woori problem, right? What happened there, it's kind of a warning sign for the whole financial industry.
Absolutely. Woori's story, it shows what can happen when you focus too much on short-term profits, when you forget about the long game. It's a reminder that this can happen anywhere, and the consequences, they can be huge.
So what should other financial institutions, or really any company, learn from this? Should we all be, like, double-checking our banks, our investments, everything?
It's a good reminder to pay attention, for sure. Look at the companies you interact with, whether you invest in them, work for them, whatever. Look for those red flags. The board's not really independent, weak controls, history of scandals, stuff like that. It's all like little hints that something might be off.
So don't just take their word for it. Do your homework. But honestly, why should we, as individuals, care about this whole corporate governance thing? It seems so big, so complicated.
It's not just about preventing those big scandals. It's about, like, the foundation of a company's success. Good governance, it means they're more likely to make good decisions, manage risk well, and in the long run, that's good for everyone, the employees, the investors, even the community.
So it's about creating a system that benefits, everyone, not just the people at the top, but realistically, how do you hold these big, powerful companies accountable? What can one person even do?
You can do more than you think. Stay informed, ask questions, and if you see something shady, don't be afraid to speak up. You can support organizations that are pushing for better governance, and you can vote with your wallet. Support companies that align with your values.
It's like collective action.
Yeah.
Each voice adds up. It creates pressure for change. We started talking about Woori's missteps, but what are some of the broader lessons we can learn from all of this?
Woori's story, it's a powerful reminder that good governance, it's not optional, it's essential. Especially for places that handle public money, because when they mess up, everyone feels it.
So it's not just about protecting ourselves, it's about, like, the whole system's integrity. What should other financial institutions be doing right now to avoid ending up like Woori?
They got to move past this mindset of just chasing short-term profits. They got to think long-term, sustainable growth with risk management at the core of it all. That means valuing long-term success, building a culture where ethics matter, and making sure the board is truly independent.
So thinking beyond the next quarter's profits and thinking about like the impact their decisions have on everyone. But let's be real, change is slow. How can we make sure these lessons stick, that real change actually happens?
Strong regulations, strong oversight, those are key. Regulators got to be proactive, not just reacting after the fact. They got to enforce the rules, punish bad behavior, and make sure everyone's playing by the same rules. But it can't just be about punishment, right? There's got to be rewards for doing things right, for going above and beyond.
It's about making doing the right thing, well, the expected thing. We've covered the scandal, the fallout, the steps to fix it. But now I'm curious about the bigger picture.
Yeah.
What does this whole situation tell us about the values driving the financial sector? What's at the core of it all?
This really forces us to ask, is a system that's all about profit, all about making money, can it really be good for society in the long run? Does that just lead to, like, cutting corners, ignoring ethics, and eventually more situations like Woori?
That's a heavy question. Makes you think about what really matters. Financial institutions, they're important, right? They help the economy grow. They help businesses succeed. They help people achieve their financial goals. But that comes with responsibility, right?
Absolutely. They've got a duty to be ethical, to manage risk, to think about the well-being of everyone, not just themselves. And Woori, they're a prime example of what happens when you ignore that responsibility.
So as we head into the last part of this deep dive, the big takeaway is good governance. It's not just a fancy phrase. It's the foundation of a healthy financial system, which ultimately impacts us all.
The road ahead for Woori and for the whole sector, it's going to be tough. But their story, it's a good reminder that we can't just sit back and watch. We've got to hold these institutions accountable, demand better, because the cost of doing nothing, it's just too high.
So in our final part, we'll switch gears a bit. Look at companies that are getting it right, companies that show good governance works. Stay tuned. We've spent a lot of time, kind of dissecting what went wrong at Woori, but I'm curious, is anyone actually getting this right? Are there companies out there that are proving that, like, good governance, it's not just a fantasy, but it can actually lead to success?
Oh, absolutely. There are some real standouts, companies that show you can do good and do well, One that comes to mind, Patagonia, the outdoor clothing company.
Yeah, Patagonia, they make good stuff, but what makes them so special in terms of, like, governance?
It's more than just the clothes, right? They've got this deep commitment to, like, the environment, social responsibility, and their whole governance structure. It reflects that. They're super transparent, put out these detailed reports on their impact, talk to their employees, their customers, even give a big chunk of their profits to environmental causes.
So it's not just talk. They're actually putting their money where their mouth is. That's pretty cool. Any other companies out there kind of walking the walk like that?
Unilever's another one. They're huge, right? Consumer goods, everything from Dove soap to Ben & Jerry's.
Unilever, yeah, they're massive. How does a company that big even begin to be sustainable?
They've been strategic about it, set these ambitious goals, working on lowering their environmental impact, making sure their supply chain is ethical, all that stuff. They're big on diversity and inclusion too, both within the company and in the communities they work in.
So it's not just the planet, it's treating their people right, their suppliers right. Makes you feel a bit better about buying their stuff, maybe.
Exactly. And here's the thing. It's not just the right thing to do. It's good for business. Studies actually show that companies with strong sustainability, which often goes hand in hand with good governance, they actually do better financially over time.
So doing good is good for the bottom line too, huh? That's a message I think more companies need to hear. But let's be real. Even with these good examples, this whole good governance thing is an uphill battle, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest roadblocks we're still facing?
It's tough because there's this constant tension between short-term profits and, like, long-term value. There's always pressure to make money now, even if it means cutting corners, maybe being a little less ethical, which can really hurt you down the line.
Yeah, it's like instant gratification versus, thinking about the future.
Exactly. And that's where regulators, investors, they have a big role to play. Got to create systems that reward long-term thinking and, discourage that short-term greed.
So reward the good guys, punish the bad guys. Makes sense. What else is standing in the way?
Global supply chains, those are a huge challenge. Think about it, trying to make sure everything is ethical and sustainable, but your supply chain goes through like a dozen countries, each with their own rules, their own cultures. It's a mess.
Yeah, that sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It can be. Transparency and collaboration, that's key. Companies got to work closely with their suppliers, make sure they're following the rules, being ethical. And companies need to be open about where their stuff comes from so consumers can make informed choices.
So no more turning a blind eye to like sweatshops or pollution just because it's happening somewhere else.
Exactly. And you, as a consumer, you have power too. Supporting companies that do things right, that sends a strong message to everyone else.
It's that whole vote with your wallet thing, right? Making your choices count. We've gone from Woori's mess to, Patagonia, Unilever doing some good stuff. As we wrap up, what's the one thing you really hope people listening will take away from all this?
The big thing is good governance. It's not just some abstract idea. It has a real impact on the world, for better or worse.
It's not about checking boxes. It's about doing things the right way, building a culture of, integrity, responsibility.
Right. And there will be challenges, but this whole idea of good governance, it's crucial if we want a better world, a fairer world, a more sustainable world.
It's a fight worth fighting.
I totally agree.
Well, that's our deep dive into the world of corporate governance. We've seen how it can go wrong, but also how it can be a force for good.
We've looked at the challenges, but also what each of us can do to demand better from the companies that, have such a big influence on our lives.
Knowledge is power, right?
Sure.
The more we know about this stuff, the better choices we can make.
Don't be afraid to ask questions, to demand transparency, to hold the powerful accountable.
Because we all deserve a system that works for everyone, not just a select few.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Hope you learned something and feel like you can make a difference.
Keep learning, keep questioning, keep pushing for better.
And remember, even small actions can have a big impact.